What a great program. You know, where else can we be together and have this kind of honesty in telling our stories? I think it's just fantastic. So I'm glad to be here. It's my privilege, too, tonight to introduce our Anon speaker. He's a good friend of mine, and I know he's got some good things for us tonight. I know he's been sitting there writing and making notes and drawing pictures, so I'm real interested in what he's going to have to say. And I've always appreciated Mike, especially in our Wednesday meetings over in Park Rapids, because he's always very helpful, always very positive, and I know whenever we start getting off the track a little bit, that he brings us back to the Al-Anon principles and to the core values. So really looking forward to what you have to say, Mike.
Thank you, Wayne, and thanks for this opportunity to talk to you. My name is Mike. I'm a grateful member of Al-Anon. You know, we have this saying, I guess, I don't know if it's an AA or not, but it's an Al-Anon. You may not like all of us, but you'll come to love us in a very special way, the same way we already love you. And boy, I just feel the love. Thank you. Our stories do reveal what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. I'm going to speed through what it was like, my early past. I was from a normal family, normal Midwestern family, meaning that my parents didn't really express love very much, and they didn't praise me a whole lot. They had high expectations. I was supposed to do well. I met their expectations. I went off to the University of Minnesota to be in pre-med, and along the way I got exposed to the philosophy of existentialism and decided that being an existentialist means that you live for all the experiences you could crowd into your life. And so I began to crowd some experiences into my life and decided I really didn't want to be a doctor because that didn't leave room for experiences. So I went into theater and film, and I dropped out and went to San Francisco to pursue my career in film. And along the way, or when I got there, I found out that the real career to be had was in drugs, sex, and rock and roll. That was in the 60s. And so one of those drugs was Dexedrine, which we know today as methamphetamine or crank or speed. And I didn't take it because I was a druggie. I mean, I smoked marijuana and I drank, but I didn't take Dexedrine because I was a druggie. I did it to stay awake because I had a girlfriend who worked the day shift and I worked the night shift at the Wax Museum at Fisherman's Wharf as a janitor. And I would pop one of these little blue pills to stay awake. And it usually worked because, of course, you know, she's working days and I'm working nights, and we've got to have time to be together. Anyway, I wasn't sleeping much. So one night I popped one of these things and got tired, laid down on the floor, and all of a sudden the place is full of people. They're walking all around me. And I'm right in front of the Last Supper, and they're stopping and looking at the Last Supper and everything. Well, I get up and do my little vacuuming a little bit more, and they kind of flip in and out of my field of vision, and finally I see the gay curator of the Wax Museum, Tommy T., crawling out of the Battle of Gettysburg. And I realized this can't be true because the Battle of Gettysburg is very fragile, and Tommy T. could not be in there. He would fall through. So I walked outside, and I had a breath of fresh air, and all that stuff went away. Now, that should have been a clue that there was something wrong with me or wrong with that particular drug or the combination, and I shouldn't do it again. But I got back to Minnesota. I did a bunch of stuff. All this time I'm doing a lot of marijuana, and I'm doing a lot of alcohol in the responsible recreational way that we did it, drug, sex, and rock and roll. You know. But I found myself one evening late at night in the night auditor's office at the Radisson Hotel, the Sheraton Ritz Hotel, where I was working as a busboy. And I was dressed in an Air Force summer fly suit with dark glasses, and I had lead vials in my pocket that I claimed might be bombs. And they called the police, and thank God the police didn't shoot me on the spot, which is what they would have done today if I'd said I had bombs in my pocket. But they carted me off to General Hospital, and then after 30 days in General Hospital, they carted me off to Rochester, and I did some recovery there, and got out and went back, and got out and went back, and I got out and I was doing good on rehab, and then somebody gave me some more. Oh, excuse me, I forgot to tell you that the reason I ended up there was because somebody gave me some Dexedrine, which I hadn't been taking, but they gave me some speed. So about a year after that, I went to a party, took some more speed, and whoops, there I am, back in the hospital. They said, well, you've done this a lot, we're going to keep you here for a while, like a year. So they did, and in the process, I met a nice young lady in the hospital. She was a patient too, and we got married, and that didn't last very long. And the point of going through all this background is just to tell you that somehow, although I never crossed that invisible line, I have walked a walk that a lot of people have walked in little bits of time, and it's not exactly a resentment, but it's sort of like I always thought, why couldn't I just go ahead, get it over with, and be an addict or an alcoholic and just do the 12 steps that way? But that's not what happened. What happened was, after I divorced this young lady, this patient that I had met in the hospital, I married another very nice young lady. Long, flowing hair, beautiful, had a 5-year-old boy, and we fell in love almost immediately, and we drank together, and we drank, and we drank, except she always drank more than I did, and she usually got terribly emotional, and she couldn't seem to wait until the weekend to drink and so forth. But, well, I came out of drugs, sex, and rock and roll. That's kind of normal for me. At some point, it stopped being normal, and I realized there was a problem, but I went ahead and married her anyway. And we did pretty well in that kind of merry-go-round way. She kept holding on a little bit, and then in the winter of 1975, there was a great blizzard in Minnesota, and I was stuck away from home in a motel it wasn't even a motel, it was just a gas station at the crossroads in southwestern Minnesota. When I got back to the house, she had gone through everything in the house. She had gone up, we had a triplex that she owned, and I married her when she had it, and so we owned it, but she went upstairs, broke into the apartment of one of the tenants, and stole a bottle of Courvoisier, the high-priced stuff. Drank all that and so forth. So, getting to the point of what it was like, what did I do when I got there? After I had, I was the first person into town because I got on a milk truck out of that truck stop, which was 20 miles away, and I beat it up there, and that milk truck got me through the drifts to the door. After I had shoveled out, the first thing I did was get in the car and go down to the liquor store and buy her a 5th of Courvoisier to replace the one she stole, and buy her a 12-pack so she had something to drink. That was my idea of taking care of my wife. It turned out later that she told me that was her bottle. There was a breakthrough. She knew then she was an alcoholic. I didn't, even though professionally I was working with programs that helped alcoholics. I suppose I was told what it was. I was told I know what I ought to see this, I ought to recognize it, but I didn't. And that spring passed, that summer, and I remember one time in the summer, late summer, we had a hell of a fight. I was waxing the kitchen floor, and something about the way I was doing it she didn't like, and she wanted me to move the refrigerator, and she was drunk, and I was angry, and she grabbed that refrigerator and threw it out the front door. Literally. I mean, she pushed that thing straight out into the yard. And that, to me, was my snap. Like, I've got to fix this right now. I've got to fix it. So I began researching ways to do that, although I didn't tell her. And then she, on her own, was researching ways to do things. She'd been doing a few things. Like, she went to the mental health center. She got a counselor. And the counselor was doing behaviorism and said, listen to relaxation tapes and, okay, measure your drinks. Just write down a little chart here and measure how many drinks you're having, and then, tell me next week. Well, of course, she fudged the numbers and lost control and never finished more than about 3 check marks on the list until morning. But somehow that fall, she realized that this was it, and she said, I've got to do it now. I've got to go. And again, being the responsible person who should be fixing this problem, I helped her find the best program available, which was Hazelden. Although she could have gone to Wilmer, she could have gone to Granite Falls, or lots of other places, but the insurance covenant said, hey, let's go with Hazelden. I knew that was pretty good. And I thought, well, to do my part, I better do everything I can to fix this problem. So I decided I'd go to a family program up there. So I went to the family program, and I sat in a frame house out there by Center City with a bunch of people in a room, and this wise lady who, although she didn't identify herself as being a member of Al-Anon because, Al-Anon is separate, but I knew she was eventually. Sat there and went around the room. She asked everyone to go around and talk about how we got there. She got to me, and I launched into this long, rather complicated technical description of what I had done and where things were going and what I hoped to accomplish on behalf of my wife and so forth. And she cut me off and said, we've got a saying, keep it simple, stupid. And my God, I keep it simple, stupid. I'm stupid. That's the one thing that I always thought I had was a brain, that made me stupid. And so I shut up, and then I learned something else that day. 2 things I learned that day. One was keep it simple, stupid. And the second was something about our higher power, but I didn't really understand it at the time. Because she talked about, in sort of vague ways about, well, this is what we do, and she said, for example, I was going on the radio the other day. Somebody wanted to interview me for something, and I just completely blew it. She said, I just messed up. She said, because I just didn't stop and pray about it and let my higher power take over. I thought, what do you mean? You're going to go on the radio and talk, and you're going to, just turn it over and let God do it? I mean, what is this? This is not some mystical thing, is it, or whatever? But it really poked me. It really got something launched in my brain about a higher power and turning things over when times get tough. So that was my introduction to Al-Anon. They didn't call it Al-Anon, but it was Al-Anon. And they told me to get to an Al-Anon meeting, and I did. And I walk into this room in southwestern Minnesota, and here's me and about 12 other people, all of whom were female. And it stayed that way for a long time. Thank God our group in Park Rapids has a really nice balance of men now. Not that I have anything against women, but this program is for everybody. And for every female alcoholic, there's a male who should be in Al-Anon. Maybe male too, I don't know. So the next year was, well, I shouldn't say that. No, I've got to back up. Here's where my story gets kind of difficult again. I'm in Al-Anon in December of 1975, and I get a call from Hazelden that my wife has had a psychotic break and she's in a mental hospital. Turns out she'd been taking a lot of Valium, didn't tell anybody, didn't tell me, didn't tell them, withdrew from it, had a reaction and withdrawal, went psychotic. And so for the next year, now see, this is the point of me talking about my mental illness. I understood. This I understood. I didn't understand alcoholism, but I understood her illness. For the next year, things were good, relatively speaking, except that she was just clobbered by medication. But other than that, things were good. We went to meetings. We drove to meetings. We found a fellowship. That spring we went to Gopher State. I just found I just loved it. I loved what was going on. I wasn't working the steps, but I loved being in the fellowship. That went on for a number of years. Me going to meetings, me loving the fellowship, me picking up a little bit here and there about what the fellowship meant, a little bit of the steps, praying when I needed to, always finding my higher power there when I needed my higher power. And then about 10 years into it, she had a relapse. She had she overdosed on her medications. She went to the hospital. She got out. She was off the walls for a while. She got drunk. She went to treatment. And then it was on and off for 5 years. And then's when I found out that what I had to do to get anything like serenity was I had to go to meetings. And I had to work the steps. I still didn't do it faithfully. I didn't do it as well as I should have, but it got me through. After that rocky road for those 5 years, she finally, something clicked. She got her sobriety. She went back to school. She became a CD counselor. Good years, lot of good years in there. We went to meetings. We went back to church. You know, I knew that I couldn't fulfill my sense of what I needed to do in that 11th step, praying, you know, only to knowledge of God's will and the power to carry that out unless I had some structure to my faith, so we found faith again. And it was great. And then she began to have other issues. Her illness, her mental illness came back in a way that she couldn't really help and control, and she couldn't work anymore. And then, about 6 years ago, well, I had a story. We were living in California, and it was a pretty good life. We had a place in Minnesota, a place in California, but things began to change with her. And I remember about 6 years ago, one particular incident where she had decided to go to a meeting at night at the Sahara Club in Hammond, California. And it was straight down the street from where we lived. The directions were obvious. She went to the meeting, took the car. She came back about 45 minutes later. I thought it was a little early. And she was distraught. She couldn't find her way there. She drove around for 45 minutes. And that was the first big signal we had that she was declining into dementia, which she had for the last 6 years of her life. 2 years ago, in February, she got a lung cancer diagnosis, stage 4. And died last May 4th. And you know, when Bill asked me if I'd speak tonight, it didn't occur to me it would be this tough. And just about out of time. But the takeaway for this, I wanted to do something to tell you kind of how this program worked for me at all these crisis points in my life. And even though I'm shedding some tears now, it's not because I feel hopeless. It's not because it's not even because I hurt that bad. Because the thing that happened in this whole process is that this program was there for me and with me. My friend Wayne was there the day she died to help me through it. You know, my cries for God to let me accept the things I couldn't change were heard. I had profound spiritual experiences moving down the road from that. And I found ways in these last few months to do more service. I finally got into service after all those years. So, for those of you that are just coming into these rooms, this is a program that helps you through everything in life. It's a program that, as our previous speaker said, you can't do without that higher power. You can't really do it. That one is God. You can find it now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming tonight.